Topic here is cities of refuge, illegals, and what the Torah says. And obviously this has been in the news, the tragic death of the woman in San Francisco killed by a repeat offender, illegal immigrant in San Francisco, or San Francisco as I call it, or I got that from Michael Savage. And it ties somewhat in, that's the hook here, to the double Parsha we have this week, which is at the end of the book of Numbers, Parsha Matos and Parsha Masai, and I'm with Rabbi Avi Rubenfeld of Chabad of Chesterfield and Torah in 5, and he's going to relate this all together. Thanks, Rabbi Rubenfeld.
My pleasure. So this week's Torah portion, a double Torah portion, a double whammy, the Torah portion of Matos and Masai, or Matot and Masai if you're a Sephardic pronunciator. Brings up a very interesting topic, this topic of refuge cities, that if somebody committed manslaughter, and that's a distinction here, by the way, to make sure that although the repeat offender claims that it was manslaughter, that he didn't realize he was shooting somebody,
right?
Nobody's really accusing him of manslaughter, whereas the Torah is clearly identifying somebody who unintentionally murdered somebody.
Well, that wouldn't even necessarily be manslaughter. Yeah, okay.
Well, I believe that's the dictionary definition of manslaughter, is unintentional killing.
But in the Torah, it's often like someone who's not to blame at all,
So the Torah doesn't actually feel that way. Somebody who killed somebody else, even by accident, is not off the hook. They are liable. As a matter of fact, that's the whole idea of refuge cities. That if this fellow who committed this unintentional murder is not in a refuge city, the family members of the person who was murdered, killed, actually have a right to kill him.
I'm just thinking of an example of, like, say someone who is driving a car and doing absolutely everything right, and a guy totally recklessly jumps out in front of a car. It wouldn't be manslaughter in that case, but it might apply to the Torah.
In the legal system, you're saying it won't be.
It's a legal term.
But I'm not so sure that that's correct, though. If the person was murdered, what would it be considered?
It would be a killing, but you wouldn't be charged. Say I'm driving within the speed limit, doing everything I should as a driver, and some idiot who's intoxicated runs out in front of the car, completely not looking, and I did everything I could I'm doing everything I was supposed to as a driver, it wouldn't be manslaughter. I wouldn't be charged with manslaughter.
Meaning he wouldn't be charged with manslaughter, but it's still...
Oh, okay. Well, manslaughter is a legal term, just as murder is a legal term.
Right, and
it's a killing.
The manslaughter was committed, even though if you could demonstrate that you're not liable, you're still not held liable. But I think the definition, but
okay.
Regardless, it's semantics. You may be correct in that. But let's for clarity purposes, let's say unintentional murder. So this unintentional murder.
You can't have unintentional murder, unintentional killing. Sorry. Okay, let's leave it to Judaism. Enough with the legal stuff. I'll let you talk. Sorry.
But that's the way the Torah. By the way, that distinction is intentional, in that the Torah does feel that you did commit murder, even if it was unintentional. That doesn't mean you'll be held liable if you make it to this city of refuge. But if you don't go to the city of refuge, then by them killing you, they're not actually committing a crime.
Oh.
So in that sense, the Torah does consider it murder, and I'll explain that very briefly. The reason for that is because ultimately the Torah doesn't believe that the Talmud tells us very clearly that there are two things that happen beyond your choice, that are not, the two things that are mandatory, unlike the famous American saying, is unrelated to your taxes. It has to do with being born and dying. Those are not things by chance. They're not left up to you, and they're not really in anyone else's hands. Those are purely in God's hands. When to be born and when you die, that's not up to you. So the fact that this next person died at the hands of this person's accident, that person was going to die even if this person didn't commit that accidental killing. The fact that this person, though, ended up being the vehicle demonstrates that they were guilty of some sort. Understand? Mm-hmm. So that is a distinction that the Torah would have probably with American law.
Yeah.
Now, going back to what we were speaking about in today's news, in the modern context of a refuge city or a sanctuary city, that is entirely different than the idea of the Torah. However, as a Torah observant student, we all should be in favor of sanctuary cities, but not the sanctuary cities that they're talking about in the press. That's something
Right.
extremely different.
And no one's claiming that all illegal immigrants, no matter how much we are against them, are manslaughterers or murderers. No one's even making that claim.
It may or may not be the case, regardless of illegal immigrants and regardless of all those details. The idea of a city not enforcing the law is actually so against everything the Torah talks about. The Torah speaks about very clearly that if you don't enforce laws, you are in effect responsible for the negative outcomes that will happen. And the Torah repeats it over and over and over again, that by upholding the laws that may not be, they may make you queasy at first. That, it's not easy to punish somebody. Any parent will tell you this. But if you don't do it, then you are responsible for the outcome.
Right. And Rush Limbaugh was talking, I think, earlier this week or last week about, why can't conservatives, he was being tongue-in-cheek, why can't conservatives have sanctuary cities for unborn fetuses where abortion doesn't apply? But that's another matter. But, one question about this is a lot of time on sanctuary cities, and there's always a choice of what made it into the Torah and what didn't. And obviously in Genesis they skip a lot of stuff, but here they emphasize quite a bit. And why do you think that is? What is it that the average person who never commits manslaughter, what is it that the average person can learn that applies to his or her own life from this week's double reading?
That is an excellent point. And I love the implication in that each and every one of us needs to learn how to apply the weekly Torah portion to our life. And
let me add, we just came through a time in which we completely skipped 38 years in which the Jews were in the desert. The Torah just doesn't mention anything about it.
That's right. And because the Torah is not a history book, it only conveys the messages, the instructions that apply to all time, to all generations. And if there's any details throughout those 30 years that would have applied to every generation, we would have heard about it. And the fact that it doesn't, that obviously means that it might have applied to one or to two or to three, but it didn't apply to every generation. Therefore, it's not in the Torah. The Torah is not history. The Torah means, the word Torah itself means instruction. So each and every one of us actually need to recognize that we have internally, spiritually, if you will, or psychologically, our own sanctuary city, our own place which we need to recognize. We need to make some place sacrosanct. We need to have something which is beyond challenge and beyond. We can't constantly be in a state of overcoming battles. That's not human. And each and every one of us, every week, has this opportunity. God actually gave it to us as a gift, and it's called Shabbat. Shabbat is our own sanctuary city every week. You decompress, you unplug, you turn off your smartphone, and you turn off your computers, and you really disconnect. And actually, many of the time management pros that are writing books for multi-million-dollar CEOs in today's day and age are recommending, even the most busy people, the people with the greatest responsibilities, CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies, need to unplug for one day a week so that you can remain sane, you can remain healthy. Shabbat is every single one of our sanctuary city in today's day and age.
But the follow-up question, I got to ask a follow-up question. Shabbat is meant for the Jews. It seems to have psychological benefits to people who are not Jews in a way that keeping kosher really has no benefit to you if you're not Jewish. In a spiritual sense, that we don't say there's any health reason. It's because God commanded us. What do you say about that paradox?
That's a very good question. And just because a non-Jew is not commanded in Shabbat, and Shabbat, by the way, is one of those exclusive mitzvot. It has the word ot, that it's a sign of the Jewish people. That doesn't mean that they can't emulate the message of Shabbat. And the message of Shabbat, not the observance of Shabbat, but the message of Shabbat, that has to be part of it that's exclusive. The message of Shabbat is that you need to take one day and you need to recharge, you need to plug in, you need to reevaluate who it is and what it is that motivates your life. And everybody can do that.
Right. But we're just not saying, we're not telling any non-Jews that they shouldn't eat that bacon cheeseburger, right?
They can even bake their cheeseburger on Shabbat.
Yeah, they can make it. No, I said bacon cheeseburger. I mean, there's no reason not to do that, as far as we're concerned. They're not going to get into
But I'm reiterating, they can bake, which is one
Yes.
of the prohibitions for a Jew, and they can make the cheeseburger, which is another prohibition for a Jew, on Shabbat. And that's not a problem. It's not a contradiction.
Gotcha. If people are still listening at this point, it might be, there's a good chance they like what you have to say. And they may, in general, some people out there may want to hear from you more often and learn, what you have to say more often. And I'm setting you up right here, so take it.
I appreciate that. In the unlikely incident, right, that they're still listening and that they have that intention. But the daily call that we have 2 times a daily call that we study together with people actually from the entire nation, from New York all the way to California.
And I'm a mere listener. I'm a mere listener. You're not going to have to sit through listening to me on this call. I just want to make that clear. But go on.
You're explaining that as if that would be a negative thing.
Well, some people.
On the contrary, we encourage everybody to be a participant. At the end of every call, we have a time for questions and answers, and many times, each of us gets to ask a question, and some of us get to answer. But that's a wonderful opportunity. Actually, I believe, in my opinion, that more is learned during the question and answer than the class itself. So the daily call that's during the daytime is actually only a 5-minute call, although sometimes we do 5 in Jewish time, and it's from 12:20 Central Time till 12:25. We send out a daily reminder as well. Anybody's welcome to request to be added to the list. You can send an email to rabbiavi@gmail.com. That's RABBIAV as in Victor I @gmail.com, and we'll add you to the list. Just include your cell phone number and your name. And we also do that call, not the Torah and 5 call, which is a quick law in how to live a better life and a quick thought that's supposed to inspire you to live a better life. But the evening call, which we do at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and is a 15-20-minute call on the daily Chumash and Rashi. The Chumash means the 5 books of Moses. Rashi is the foremost commentary on the 5 books of Moses and the whole Torah in reality. And we like to derive a lesson in understanding the message from the blueprint, which is the Torah portion, and how to live a better life that week. So that's nightly at 8:30 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. Friday night and Shabbat night is off the books. And the daily call is Sunday through Friday at 12:20, and those are both Central Time.
All right. Thank you for your time, Rabbi.